The rhythmic click of heels echoed through the marble halls of Hendricks Enterprises, one of the most powerful marketing firms in the city. Inside the glass-walled office on the top floor sat Alara Hendricks, the company's young yet intimidating CEO. Her reputation preceded her, brilliant, bold, and utterly unapproachable. She didn't believe in luck, only control. Every deal, every decision, every person tested before trusted. So when her longtime assistant resigned, Alara decided to find her replacement the only way she knew how, through a test. A secret one. Enter Mira Saeed, a 25-year-old fresh graduate with a spark in her eyes and an unpolished confidence that stood out from the rest. She wasn't intimidated by Alara's cold tone or piercing gaze during the interview. Instead, she smiled softly and said, "I don't plan to impress you, Miss Hendricks. I plan to help you." That single line made Alara pause. Within days, Mira was hired. Her task list was endless, managing Alara's impossible schedule, calming stormy clients, and keeping up with the CEO's perfection. But what Mira didn't know was that her new boss had deliberately designed the job to be overwhelming. It was Alara's secret test, a way to see if Myra's kindness was genuine or a facade. And what Alara didn't know was that Myra's warmth wasn't a strategy. It was who she truly was. Every day, she'd bring Alara coffee with a post-it note that read, "Don't forget to smile today." At first, Alara ignored them. But one morning, she caught herself waiting for that little note and for the gentle hum of Myra's voice as she entered. The test had begun, but something inside Alara was already starting to shift. Weeks passed, and Alara couldn't help noticing the calm aura Mira carried into every chaos. Even when the office buzzed with tension, Mira stayed gentle, patient, infuriatingly so. One stormy evening, everyone had left except the two of them. Alara was pacing, furious after a failed deal, while Mira quietly gathered scattered papers. "You don't have to stay," Alara muttered. "I know," Mira said softly, "but you shouldn't stay alone when you're this upset." That simple statement stopped Alara mid-stride. No one dared speak to her that way, not even her board. When Alara finally looked up, Mira was standing near the window, lightning reflecting in her eyes. Something fragile and human cracked inside the CEO. The next morning, Alara found her coffee waiting with a note. "Even storms pass. Don't lose your calm." For the first time in years, she smiled at her desk. Yet, she reminded herself, it's just a test. She wasn't supposed to feel this. She wasn't supposed to notice the way Myra's laughter lingered or how her perfume stayed in the elevator. And yet, she did. By the end of the week, Alara secretly added new challenges, overlapping deadlines, impossible client calls, to see how far Mira would go before breaking. But Mira never snapped. She just worked harder, with quiet determination. One night, when Alara pretended to leave, but came back, she found Mira asleep at her desk, files open, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Alara stood there, watching. Something heavy and unfamiliar stirred in her chest. For the first time, the test didn't feel like control. It felt like guilt. A month later, Alara's walls began to blur. She no longer knew where professionalism ended and emotion began. Myra's kindness had become her weakness and her comfort. During a business trip to Karachi, they were forced to share adjoining hotel rooms. Late that night, Alara couldn't sleep. She found herself knocking on Myra's door under the excuse of discussing tomorrow's presentation. But the presentation never came up. They ended up talking for hours about music, regrets, and dreams. Myra's laughter filled the quiet air like a melody. Alara found herself revealing things she never had before, her fear of failure, the loneliness that came with power. Mira listened, eyes soft. You don't have to be perfect all the time, Alara, she whispered. You just have to be real. No one had ever said her name like that, gently, as if it were something precious. Alara looked away, her heart betraying her calm facade. When she returned to her room, she caught her reflection in the mirror, eyes bright, lips curved. The woman staring back wasn't the cold CEO everyone feared. She was someone alive. But then came the twist, a report from HR revealing that Mira had applied through a personal referral. The name listed made Alara freeze, her rival company's COO. The doubts returned. Was Mira sent here to spy? Was this entire connection a trap? Alara's chest tightened as she stared at the folder. Tomorrow, she would find out. The next morning, Alara was colder than ever. Mira, she said, her voice sharp, come to my office. Mira walked in, sensing the tension. Yes, Miss Hendricks? Alara placed the HR file on the table. Would you like to explain why your reference is from my competitor? Myra's face went pale. That's my cousin. She works there. I didn't think. Don't lie to me, Alara snapped, her voice trembling with both anger and something deeper, hurt. I'm not lying. Myra's voice cracked. I didn't know you'd think that. Alara turned away. The test was supposed to show me who you are. I see it now. Mira stood there, heartbreaking. A test? So everything I did, every moment, you were testing me? Alara froze. The words hung heavy between them. Myra's eyes shimmered with tears. I looked up to you, Alara. I thought we understood each other. Mira. But she was already gone. The sound of her fading footsteps felt louder than any silence Alara had ever known. That night, Alara sat alone in her office, staring at Myra's empty desk, the coffee mug still there, the last note reading. Even bosses need warmth. For the first time, Alara realized she hadn't just tested Mira. She tested love and lost. Days turned into a week. The office felt colder without Myra's quiet laughter. Alara tried focusing on work, but every corner reminded her of the woman she'd driven away. She replayed every smile, every word, and the look in Myra's eyes when she said, I thought we understood each other. She did understand now. Too late. One evening, Alara went through her emails and found one unread message sent the night before Mira left. Ms. Hendricks, I don't know if I'm passing your tests, but I just wanted you to know I'm grateful. You made me stronger. You made me believe in myself again. Yours, Mira. The simplicity of those words shattered Alara's defenses. Without thinking, she left the office, driving through rain-soaked streets until she reached the small apartment Mira had mentioned once during their talks. When Mira opened the door, surprise washed over her face. Alara, the CEO, usually composed and flawless, looked vulnerable, her hair damp, her voice trembling. I was wrong, Alara said. You weren't the one being tested. I was. Mira didn't reply, just looked at her, hurt but listening. Alara took a step closer. You taught me what no boardroom or deal ever could, how to feel again. Myra's eyes softened. Then why hurt me? Because I was scared. The rain whispered outside. Silence lingered, then Mira exhaled softly. You can't fix everything overnight, Alara. But maybe we can start again. For the first time, Alara smiled, not the CEO's smile, but her own. Only if you'll let me earn it this time. Months later, Hendricks Enterprises had changed, or maybe it was just Alara. She no longer ruled through fear, but through respect. Her office was still the same, glass walls, sleek design, but now it had something new, warmth. Mira returned, this time as executive assistant, not because Alara offered, but because she wanted to. Their bond grew quietly, built on trust, laughter, and second chances. They never labeled it. They didn't need to. The look in their eyes said enough. One evening, as the city lights shimmered below, Alara stood by the window with Mira beside her. "You once said storms pass," Alara murmured. "You were right. But sometimes, the storm leaves behind flowers." Mira smiled. "Then let's keep watering them." They stood in silence, side by side, watching the night bloom with light. The CEO's secret test had turned into something she never expected. Not a lesson in loyalty. Not a measure of strength. But the discovery of love. And this time, she wasn't afraid to feel it.